Moving on to zip functions, and when you think about a zip function in Python, it is not like whenever you zip or unzip a file or a folder on your desktop. So in Python, a zip function takes a parameter and iterables, and by iterables we mean something that we can pass on its characters or elements using a for loop, such as strings, dictionaries, and lists. And in this case, it will take, for example, two lists and take every elements by pairs. So, for example, it will take the first two elements and create a tuple, store them in a tuple, and then store this tuple in a list, and so on. So, for example, the first two elements alone, then it will move on to the second elements on each list, store them in a tuple, and then store it in a list. So for example, to justify this, let's suppose I have a list. Let's call it list one, and in this case it will be some characters or letters: A, B, C, and D. And in this case, I have another list called list2. It will be capital A, capital B, capital C, and finally capital D. And in this case, if I use this zip function here, so let's create a new list. So this is the list zipped list. And in this case, I am going to use the method zip with the list one as the first parameter and the list two as the second, and then I will store it in a list, and this list will be called zipped list. So if I go ahead and print this zipped list and run this code, we are going to get AA, BB, CC, and finally DD. So we took the list one and list two, we took every element. So for example, the first element A and the capital A will be stored in the tuple, the first tuple here, and then the second element of the list will be the tuple that contains B and capital B, and so on, C, capital C, D, and capital D. Now let's suppose we have 5 elements in list 1 and 4 elements in list 2, and let's say we have the additional element E. In this case, if we run this code one more time, we are going to get the same result. So it is important that we have the same size or the same number of elements in the two lists. And in this case, we have here 5 elements, here 4. We are going to get only the first 4 elements of each list. And after that, whatever we have in this list, for example, in list 1, will be just ignored. So Python or this zip function, zip method will ignore whatever we have after the fourth element. And in this case, if I also have here, for example, a capital E, and let me run this, as expected, we are going to get the same result. So it doesn't matter what list contains more elements. And this is it. Basically, this is how we use the zip function. However, let's suppose we already have this function, and in this list we have tuples, and in each tuple we have, for example, the lowercase a and the capital case A. And in this case, if we want to go back from the zip to unzipped, we can simply create an object called unzipped. And in this case, we can use this zip function. However, we can add the star and use the zipped list we created earlier. And let's print unzipped. Let's run this code. We are going to get, and I'm sorry, here we need to store them in a list, and let's run. We are going to get two different tuples in one list, and this tuple, the first tuple, will be the first list we entered. So as you can see here, we have the four element A, B, C, D, and they are the elements or items in list 1, and a capital A, B, C, D are the elements in list 2. Now let's suppose we want to store them in A and B. We can simply use this and store them here, such as A, comma B. And if we go ahead and print now A, we are going to get A, B, C, D. Let's print B. We are going to get the capital A, B, C, and D. Now let's see how we can use this zip function in our code. So let's suppose I have for loop, and in this case, let's say I want to pass through list 1 and list 2 together. So how do we do that? We, for example, can use for I in range of 4, and in this case, we are going to print whatever we have at list 1 at position I, and same thing at list 2 position I. Let's run this. We are going to get these letters A, capital A, B, capital B, and so on. Now this is the traditional way. However, we can use a more fancy way, and in this case we can use the zip function here. So for example, we can create a tuple. In this case, let's name it L1 and L2. This is how we can extract tuples from tuples in a for loop. And in this case, we are going to extract L1 and L2 in the zip. And in this case, zip function will have list1 and list2 as parameters. And now if I go ahead and print L1, then print L2, and let's run this, we are going to get the same result as before. However, this is a better way, since, for example, if we have 10 lists, for example, or 10 dictionaries, and we want to use each and every element in each dictionary or each list. So it is better to use the zip function, as we can use or take any number or any element from these lists at once. And for example, here we took L1 and L2 at once. Now let's move on and create a real example on zip, and in this case let me delete this, and let suppose I have three lists. In this case we have the list of list 1, let's name it, and in this case I have in list 1 some products. Let's suppose I have banana, apple, and orange. Then we have the count. In this case, let's suppose we have 3, 4, and 5, and then the price. In this case, let's say 0.6, 0.2, and 0.7. So what we're going to do here is that we are going to print banana. I bought the count 3 bananas at $0.6, and then I bought 4 apples at $0.2, and so on. So this is the idea, and let's go ahead and create our for loop. And as you remember, we can use the tuple here and extract from the tuple. So it will be the fruit counter and the price, and in this case in the zip we have list 1, count, and price. And in this for loop we are going to print the sentence I bought. Then we are going to add str of the price of the count. In this case, we have the counter, and then I bought 3. Now I need to add the bananas, so plus str. It is already as a string, so we don't need to convert it, and I add list 1, fruit, and then I bought 3 bananas. I need to add the at, and then I need to add the price, so I need to convert it to string price and add the dollar sign. So this is it basically. Let's run this code. I'm going to get I bought 3 bananas. Here we need to add after fruit s, and let's run this one more time. We're going to get I bought 3 bananas at 0.6, I bought 4 apples at 0.2, and I bought 5 oranges at $0.7. And in this case, we accessed all 3 lists, list 1, count, and price at the same time, and wrote this sentence using the zip function. Now, it looks like it is a little bit messy, and to deal with that, we can simply move this str counter and create here counter and price. They will be equal to str counter followed by str price. In this case, I can simply remove str from the sentence, and same thing here, we can remove str also here. And if I run this code, I will still have the same. Here we need to add e. And if we run this one more time, we're going to have the same exact result as before, but we remove the str just to make it look like it is a better version of the print. We can also create a sequence outside. Let's name it sq, and this will be a list, and then store every element here in this list. So here we can use s equal to this, and then we use sq.append and append this s, and then after finishing from the for loop, we can print sq. And let's run this. Here we need to remove the indentation. And one more time, we are going to get the 3 sentences in one list. And so the first sentence, I bought 3 bananas at 0.6, I bought 4 apples at 0.2, and I bought 5 oranges at 0.7. Each sentence is considered as one element in this sequence or this list. So this is it basically for the zip function. We learned how to use it and when. So for example, here we have 3 lists and we need to access them at once. So it is very beneficial here. And sometimes we might have 10 different lists and we need to perform some mathematical operation and use every element in these lists. So it is very beneficial to use the zip function. Otherwise, we need to write very large or complicated line of codes. So this will make it easier in terms of understanding and how to use. And with that being said, this is the end of this video. See you in the next one.